All right, we'll get started with today's press conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Director of Athletics Kirby Hocutt, and then we will jump into questions. As a reminder, please use the raise your hand feature and/or on the right side of your screen. All right, we'll start with an opening statement from Kirby.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon to everyone. Recognizing the speculation that has been out there, I want to begin by saying Coach Wells will be returning as our football coach. Let me then say that I'm extremely proud of our student athletes, all of them, but I know today we're here to talk about football. I have the utmost respect for the young men on our football team for all that they did to play a 10-game uninterrupted season during this pandemic. They were subjected to rigorous COVID testing, detailed changes to how they had to go about their daily lives, and I believe they played with great competitive determination over the course of this football season. So to the young men on our football team, thank you for how you continue to represent Texas Tech. The 2020 football season was a frustrating one for everyone, for our team, and especially for our fans. The Red Raider Nation is passionate about our football program, and it's not where we want it to be. It's not where we expect it to be. Back-to-back 4-win seasons is not good. For the past 11 days, I have been in daily communication with Coach Wells as he has gone through his COVID illness. And it was important to me that I had a chance to sit down and visit with him face-to-face about our football program as well as the direction moving forward. On Friday, December 11th, while he was still in quarantine, so of course this was done by telephone, he presented to me his initial postseason evaluation of the program and elements that he believed to be important as we move forward. The following day, Saturday, that evening, Coach Wells and I met in his office. He was out of quarantine on Saturday, so we met in his office that evening until shortly after midnight to continue to discuss his ongoing evaluation and process. Sunday morning, we continued that conversation in my office, and President Skuvenik joined us Sunday morning for that conversation. We must get better. It's time. It's time for us to take that next step. It's important that we continue to work together to give our student athletes our full support and backing to move our program forward. Our goals with Texas Tech football have not been met, and we pledge to the Red Raider Nation that we will work every day to get better and progress to a much higher place. So that will conclude my statement this afternoon, and we'll be happy to open it up for questions for myself or President Skuvanek.
All right, we'll start with questions. We'll go to Don Williams.
Kirby, what have you seen, or what would you tell Texas Tech fans that gives you confidence that this program can get going in the direction that you expect it to and that people want it to?
Yeah, a few things, Don, that I would respond to that. One, I believe I saw progress on the defensive side of the football this year. I thought our defense at times showed significant progress in the way that they played, and I believe that we're going to continue to make progress there. I am excited and believe in what we're doing from a developmental standpoint. I saw how a developmental program works with a young man like Jordan Brooks and how he was able to continue to progress his game by what we're going to do in the off season. So I believe in what we're going to do from a developmental perspective. I'm excited about the talent that we continue to bring into this program, and about the recruits that we're going to sign on Wednesday. As I watched our team those last few weeks, Don, I saw a significant number of young men that had been brought into this program over the last year that were playing as true freshmen, some that were brought in as transfers, and some that were in their second year of the program making significant impacts and complementing young men that had been in our program for 3 or 4 or 5 seasons. So the talent continues to build and to get better, and I'm excited about that. And I believe in the changes that Coach Wells is going to make to the program. And one of those we announced earlier today. Offensively, we've got to get our identity back. We've got to continue to progress on that side of the ball, become prolific, become more aggressive in the way that we've been known to play football on the offensive side of the ball. And I believe all of those elements gives me confidence that we're going to be able to take the next steps with our football program.
Go to Jarrett Johnson.
Kirby, I think a lot of the fans have been asking and want to know, in comparison to a lot of the other athletic programs, why has the football program struggled, from your perspective as the head of the athletic program, over several years, and what needs to be done to get back to the level that, Red Raider Nation wants? Yeah,
Jarrett, if we had that exact answer, we would have implemented it. It's a daily process. It's not an easy one, and I believe it starts with recruiting and developing our young men. It starts with making sure that we're investing into all of the areas within our program that we need to invest in to provide the resources to be successful. It's not where we want to be. It's not where we need to be. But we've got to continue to move forward each and every day. And you find yourself in a situation like this. There's no shortcuts. You got to continue to bring young men in. You got to continue to evaluate all aspects of the program, and you got to talk about being at the top level. You got to talk about being great, and you got to talk about being elite. And people will criticize you when you're not, and we're not in football right now. but we are in other sports, and we believe that we can be there in all sports at Texas Tech, and we're not going to stop working each and every day with that aspiration in mind. And people can criticize us, and I understand that, but we're going to continue to support these young people that are our student athletes, invest in them, invest in our program, and keep working each day to get to that level.
Go to Brandon Solis.
Hey Kirby, just some folks wondering, and just kind of wanted to ask you, how close is this to being maybe another full staff change? And just you made the move at offensive coordinator, but how close was that? Was that a possibility to kind of just move on from this coaching staff?
Well, if I understand, Brandon, your question, today's announcement with the offensive coordinator position change. That was an element. I believe that you'll hear more about Coach Wells' plans when you have a chance to visit with him on Wednesday in conjunction with signing day. So, there are other investments that we've got to continue to make within our football program.
Go to David Collier.
Hey, Kirby, this might be a Wells question, but I figured I would throw it at you. Given the timing and everything, I know that, you want young men to commit to your program, but what's the timetable in getting an offensive coordinator in here, given the fact that I know you can't talk about recruiting, but there are some potential offensive players that are planning to sign with you guys?
Yeah, there's some extremely talented offensive players that are planning to sign with us. And, Coach Wells will be in touch with them all by the end of today. I know he's already talked to a couple of them. So, he knows the offensive philosophy that he wants to instill here. He will share that with, those young men and their families this evening. And, still believe that this is the best place for them. So many of them committed to playing for Texas Tech and for Coach Wells. And, there's an offensive identity that is associated with our program that's important for us to reclaim and to get back. And they're the class that can come in and support an extremely group of young men that are already in this locker room to help us take that next step.
Go to Skylar Dixon.
Kirby, I think you just kind of touched on it. You had mentioned a little earlier the offensive philosophy. Obviously, Cliff was one of the best in the country with what he did. Do you believe that is still the offensive philosophy that makes it work here, or is it a little bit more open to being, whatever Matt kind of envisions it being?
Well, at the end of the day, we want a winning program, and that's the goal. But, I think an important critical piece that is synonymous with Texas Tech football is, an aggressive, down the field type of offensive philosophy. And as Coach Wells and I have talked, as I alluded to the past 11 days, but really since he's been feeling better, recovering from his illness since the end of last week, his ideas for offensive philosophy are that, aggressive, proactive, down the field style that our fans have become accustomed to, and as you said, has proved to be very successful here at Texas Tech.
Go back to Don Williams.
Kirby, since the season ended, when have you met with players? What form did that take, and how would you characterize the feedback?
Don, outside of post-game Kansas, I have not met with a group of players other than some interaction within the football training facility that I have on, typical business days. There's not been direct communication with the team.
Go to Ronald Clark.
You touched on it a little bit earlier, but what are some of those qualifications that you guys are looking for with that OC position, as well as, I'm sure this is pretty early right now, but is there any names that you guys have on a short list right now?
Yeah, Ronald, fair question, good question. I would let Coach Wells answer that question on on Wednesday. I think he'll be much more prepared to talk about that. And obviously, as the head coach, that will be ultimately his decision to make. So I would respectfully ask that, maybe that's a question you would ask of Coach Wells on Wednesday.
Go back to Jarrett Johnson.
Hey, Kirby, to follow up on Brandon's question, was there ever a consideration after the regular season ended to go a different route with the head coach? And can you kind of give us an idea of when exactly in the process you decided to go the route that you did to retain Wells and then, of course, to dismiss Yost?
Well, my focus has been on this football team and program and Coach Wells and his leadership. So, I wanted to visit with him about his evaluation of the program. I wanted to talk to him about what it's going to take for us to take that next step as a program. So, my evaluation has been with Coach Wells in mind. And as we talked about his initial postseason evaluation and assessment of the program, I know we've got the right man in the chair leading this football program with the changes that he's going to make over the course of the coming months to take that next step. And as I said earlier, we must get better, and it's time.
Go to Jake Archer.
Hey, Kirby, I know you said just a second ago that Coach Wells would answer more questions about offensive coordinator, but obviously it's a joint decision with y'all. Is he going to be the one primarily finding candidates? Are you going to find candidates? And then if so, who has the higher say on who gets hired and who doesn't?
That's the head football coach's responsibilities. So that will be Coach Wells's search. That will be his process. I'll support him in every way, Jake, that I can through his evaluation and communication with the candidates that he's considering. And as he would always do, I'm sure he'll share with me his thoughts throughout the process. And as he goes into his decision making, he'll share those with me. But ultimately, that will be the head coach's process and decision.
Go to Sam Khan.
Hey, Kirby, given the financial impact that all athletic departments have had because of the pandemic this year, how much of that has trickled into decision making when it comes to these types of decisions, in your opinion?
Yeah. Sam, you're absolutely right. It's been a financially challenging year for college athletics. We at Texas Tech are looking at probably a $25 to $30 million reduction in our revenue streams this year. But we were prepared to make the best decision for Texas Tech had we gotten there in any decision that we have. So, President Skuvenek and I had talked that, the financial resources for us were available if we got to that point down the road. But I'll tell you, we never progressed to that point because, as I mentioned, my conversations were focused on Coach Wells' initial postseason evaluation, the elements he believed to move this program forward. And I believe in Coach Wells, and I believe in the changes and the things that he's going to be doing in the coming months to continue to lead this program and to make sure that we take a competitive step forward next season.
As a reminder, you can use the raise your hand feature for questions for Kirby Hocutt or President Skuvenek. We'll go to Chuck Carlton next.
Yes, Kirby. I was curious, again, kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Sam had to ask, but how difficult is it evaluating a coach and a program during the COVID year that we've had? And I believe Don had the stat that more than 90 of your players have tested positive, missed 2 weeks, all the things that went into that.
Yeah, Chuck, it was a year unlike anything that you would ever anticipate. None of us have ever tried to be an athletic director or a football coach during a pandemic. So it was a challenge. Up until the month of July, there was questions on if we were going to have a football season. What was it, the middle of July? I think end of July was when the schedule got reset and we went, a reduction of 2 games and to play, one non-conference opponent and then all conference. There were weeks that honestly, sitting here today, I'll tell you that we were below the threshold on certain position groups to play that particular week. But we made the decision internally to go ahead and play because we knew how important playing these football games are. And our team wanted to play. Our coaches wanted to play. We wanted to play. So there were challenges. But in saying all that, Chuck, it was no different here at Texas Tech than what every program across this country was dealing with and what they were going through. So challenge, yes. Weekly challenge, having tests go down to Friday, knowing that we were already on a borderline of would we be able to play that week to maybe going right below it and still deciding to play. There were so many challenges this year that I'm proud of how we at Texas Tech were able to manage through it, led by our sports medicine team, but would not have been possible without the sacrifices that these young men made week in and week out to to go through the rigorous testing, as I mentioned, go through the changes in their lifestyle that was required, and our coaches to do the same thing. It was a challenge, but proud of the way that our program persevered through it, and the Big 12 persevered through it.
Go back to Don Williams.
Quick follow-up on that, Kirby. When you said the team was below the threshold, you're referring, I'm assuming, primarily to defensive line. Was there any other position group? And how many weeks specifically did you fear you might not be able to play a game?
Yeah, Don, you're right. Defensive line was primarily the position group that was exposed for us. There were 2 particular games that I believe we could have shown that we were below the minimum thresholds, and there was one other game that came down to that Friday test. So there were a few weeks in there that were challenging as far as if we were even going to play that week, and those were decisions that were going down to midday on Fridays.
Go back to Brandon Solis.
I just had a question for President Skuvanek. Just wanted to know how much you were involved. I know you had graduations this past weekend, just how much time you were able to spend together with Kirby and just trying to get this thing sorted out.
Kirby and I communicate on a very regular basis throughout the year. And certainly during the last 10 days or so, we have communicated every day, extensively, primarily just so that I would be informed of the manner in which he was conducting the postseason evaluation, and also I think for me to understand and be able to convey just how important this is, not just to athletics but to the university. Anybody who knows me knows how much I appreciate Kirby Hocutt. And I have complete confidence in the way that he's conducted this assessment and evaluation of the season and where we are today.
Go back to David Collier.
To follow up on that, President Skuvanek, in years past, whenever we've talked to Kirby in situations like this, it's just been Kirby. Would you say that you've had more input on this decision than in years past? Because when we've done these postseason evaluations, it's typically just been with the athletic director. Just wondering if there was more involved with you this time around.
David, that's a legitimate point. We cannot deny that there's been so much scrutiny and speculation about what's transpired in the last few days. And part of my presence here today is just to reaffirm how confident I am and how supportive I am of the decisions we've made.
All right,
and yes, I'm a sports fan. I share the same passion that the Red Raider community does. And I think that's an important part of this process.
We have time for two more. We'll go to Ronald Clark and then Don Williams to close.
Going back to Kirby on that OC position, I know we talked about the recruiters that are, incoming for next season, but what about the players, that are on the team this year? I know you mentioned that you haven't really spoke with them, but how much did, their sort of vibe with, Yost make or factor into this decision at all if he was, the fit for these players or vice versa?
Yeah, Ronald, I, as I said earlier, I have great admiration and appreciation and respect for these young men. The way they fought this year until the final whistle, I appreciate, because we mentioned earlier what they were going through, playing through a pandemic on top of playing, a violent game is a lot. And these young men, I'm so proud of. And, the fact of the matter was that offensively this year, we did not produce like we're accustomed to performing at Texas Tech. And as Coach Wells evaluated where we were as a program, we got to be better offensively. And that's ultimately what has led him to the position that he's in today, and the decision to make a change with the offensive coordinator position. So, I would say, I'm proud of our players, the way they competed, the way they fought, and I'm proud of all that they did to persevere this season. And, ultimately Coach Wells had to make a decision that he believed was in the best interest of our football program and on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what we announced earlier today.
All right, we'll finish with Don Williams.
I'm going to try to get two in, if you'll indulge me, Kirby. Did you tell Matt that he needs to change offensive coordinators? Did you tell Matt he needs to make that change or else?
That was part of Coach Wells's initial postseason evaluation, Don. It was an element of his evaluation that he brought to me through his verbal summary that he gave me on Friday while he was still in quarantine. And then when we had a chance on Saturday evening to sit down and go through it in detail, it continued to be a part of his evaluation and the things that he wanted to do moving forward.
And you've indicated a couple of times that more changes were coming. So is that implying that more changes are coming in the 10-man staff of assistants?
Don, I wouldn't necessarily go that far. His evaluation and assessment continues, and there's various elements of that. And, he's reviewing and thinking through what we do 12 months a year, not just on those 10 or 12 college football Saturdays. So I would say a component of it, because his evaluation continues, and I know he's looking at all aspects of the program year round, not just not those 12 days, because what you do year round has a profound impact on your success or lack of success on those Saturday afternoons.
All right, that'll do it for today's press conference. Thank you for joining us.